The top 10 Bible prophecy events of 2022. As we approach the return of the Lord, it's not surprising to us at all that we have so many events with biblical prophetic implications that it's hard to pick just 10. We could have picked 100 from the videos we did this year. Let me share some that I feel are worth discussing. Number 10, more Christians fall asleep. In 2013, a major survey of evangelicals found 77% thought we were in the last days before the return of Jesus at that time. A recent Pew survey this year found only 63% believe we're in the last days now. Now, 63% is still a significant number, but how is it possible that the percent of evangelicals believing we're in the end times has actually dropped after events like the last 2 years? The pandemic, the racial riots, runaway inflation, vaccine mandates, threat of nuclear war, the potential for false messiahs in Israel, the potential for the collapse of USA, the rise of LGBTQ radicalism, etc., etc., etc. There is only one explanation in my mind. More evangelicals have fallen asleep in terms of the return of Jesus and are not seeing what is truly taking place in our world today. In Matthew 25:5, Jesus predicted that the entire church, wise virgins and foolish virgins, would fall asleep prior to his return. Looks like we're headed in that direction. Number 9, abortion becomes a major American value. The results of the midterm elections in America in 2022 were decided primarily by one issue: abortion rights, with nearly 65% of voters supporting the right to abortion and voting that way, with abortion rights being the number 2 issue in the entire election. Christians in America celebrated when the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade, not realizing that this decision would galvanize the majority of Americans to vote into power those favoring this heinous act. Anticipate a new law next year codifying abortion forever as an American value. When this U.S. president reminded us that America was not a Christian nation anymore, man, was he right. Number 8, the rise of the worship of Mother Earth. The entire world has surrendered to the religion of climate change and environmentalism. Bill Gates and Joe Biden want to block the sun to fight global warming, which is, absolutely crazy. Farmers in Europe are being put out of business, an action that is inviting famine just to protect the environment. In the Netherlands alone, 3,000 farmers were shut down to reduce their nitrous oxide and ammonia emissions to comply with EU regulations. Children are being indoctrinated into this cult in schools. Even the Pope has issued a revised 10 Commandments to protect the environment. For the first time in Pew Research Center survey history, another issue has tied the economy for being the most important in people's minds. Nearly as many Americans say protecting the environment should be a top policy priority as say this about strengthening the economy. Will this new religion figure into the coming one world religion of the Antichrist and persecution of those who don't comply? Time will tell, but I think it will. Number 7, the coming of digital currency. Central bank digital currencies. A cashless system plays a prominent role in biblical end times. In Revelation 13, as the only truly effective way to control buying and selling that the mark of the beast requires will be digital currency that can be programmed by the government. If you don't do what they say, they can turn off your account. No buying or selling. More than 100 nations are now exploring CBDCs. According to the International Monetary Fund, the Biden administration have just completed a test of the digital dollar and are fast-tracking it to be used in the coming year, 2023. Number 6, the development of a multi-crisis. As we said before, the pandemic, racial riots, the election, January 6th, runaway inflation, the Ukraine war, with threats of nuclear war, a new Russia-China alliance, supply chain issues, and threats of a global financial collapse, rumors of messiahs in Israel and Iran, and of course, the recent disclosure that labs have created a Frankenstein COVID variant and recreated the 1918 Spanish flu. Yes, it is a multi-crisis, one that looks just like what Jesus said the beginning of the birth pangs would look like. This is really something to keep your eyes on next year. You would think it wouldn't be number 6, but we have 5 more to go. Number 5, the understanding of who Mystery Babylon truly is. Revelation 17 and 18 contain a description of a harlot who will rule over all the kings of the earth. It will be a one-world government. It will be led by merchants who come to power by means of pharmakia. Now, who does that sound like? It was this year that our ministry opened the eyes of our viewers to the realization that the coming World Economic Forum, United Nations government, led by billionaires, will be this harlot. We are also told this government will eventually be destroyed by the beast and rejoiced over by the saints in heaven. Christians also need to be aware that this government will be drunk on the blood of the saints. If you have spent your life thinking you will be rescued prior to any hard times or martyrdom, remember, this government comes to power before the coming of the Antichrist. We will all probably experience this government in our lifetimes. Number 4, the censoring and surveillance of the world's people. When the January 6th protests happened, satellite surveillance camera footage, data from cell phones was able to identify and place each person within just a couple feet of where they were on that day, and also determine what they did. New York City has set up tens of thousands of surveillance cameras all over the city. We are moving to a China-like system where our every move is monitored by facial recognition software. As Klaus Schwab has said, China is a model for the rest of the world to emulate. Surveillance and genocide. That's what they are like. If you don't believe that, start up your car. Immediately your phone tells you how far away you are from your home. Talk about a certain product around the kitchen table, maybe a swimming pool. And guess what? Swimming pool ads show up on your Facebook feed. As soon as the 5G network is in place, the cameras will go up everywhere. You know, to quote, keep you safe. Number 3, the coming of the third temple. This year, 5 perfect red heifers arrived in Israel, portending a sacrifice that will soon allow priests to be ritually pure to provide sacrifices on the Temple Mount. Saudi Arabia is planning to divide the land of Israel, giving the Palestinian portions to Jordan in exchange for the right, possibly, to start these sacrifices. And an Orthodox rabbi's claim that they are now talking to the Jewish Messiah already. 2023 is also a year of the Messiah. Jews believe that a Messiah can only be revealed in the first year of their 7-year-long Shabuah cycle. And they believe this year, 2023, will be one of those years. Can the sacrifices on the Temple Mount be very far behind? We're down to the last 2. Let's see what number 1 is. But before we look at those last 2 prophetic signs of 2022, let me speak plainly from my heart. If these things are taking place right now, what should we be doing about it? We know these things are taking place, but what should we do? What is your church doing about it? Nothing, right? Well, hundreds of those who follow this channel are doing something. They are volunteering and paying it forward, to make a series of conferences happen in 2023, conferences to help get the church ready for Jesus' return, to get them ready so that they know what to do about things like surveillance, false Jewish messiahs, etc. If you have to invest your life in something, what could be better than helping those Jesus loved enough to die for? And for those who give or volunteer, there will be an invitation-only webinar during the last week of the year with Pastor Jake McCandless, Marquis Laughlin, and I describing what we have in mind for these conferences, some cool behind-the-scenes stuff that you only see there, and a special giveaway for everyone attending, but it's invitation only for 250 of those who either volunteer or pay it forward. And you can be part of this massive effort with us and attend the private webinar to find out details. If you feel the tug of God's voice on your heart to help this effort and wake up those attending church, then please follow the QR code on your screen or click on the link in the description. As a world, we are running out of time. Now, back to those last two signs. Number 2, the days of Lot are here. How else can you explain the anger against those that don't believe that girls can become boys and that boys can become girls, or the recent codifying of same-sex marriage into a law protecting them from even being criticized? And this was a law that was passed to an overwhelming majority of our legislators in America. And all across the globe, these attitudes that this is totally normal and healthy have become a core value of Western society. What is the impact? Trans-identifying kids in the U.S. have increased by 1,000% in just 2 years. These are the days of Lot that Jesus spoke of. And the number one story, I bet you won't be surprised, is the rise of the World Economic Forum. Globalists who want to move us to a one-world government. Just 5 years ago, had you heard of Klaus Schwab? Yuval Noah Harari? Did you know what Davos was? But this year, Klaus Schwab was a guest speaker at the G20, telling them, the world's leaders, what direction the world needed to take. And Bill Gates was there encouraging them to require vaccine mandates at the slightest inkling of the next pandemic. And guess what? They passed it. All nations will require these. Were you tracking the World Economic Forum even 5 years ago? Of course not. Today, many are aware of this crowd and their one world intentions and links to the United Nations and world billionaires. The UN has fast-tracked their Agenda 2030 to next year, 2023. So hold on to your hats. And if you haven't heard of that Yuval Noah Harari character, he is the one who has famously said corporations and governments can now genetically hack humans to control their soul and free will. He's also the guy who explained why he'll worship the Antichrist and not the one true God. Click right here, because his admission is very revealing. Why someone would knowingly worship an Antichrist instead of God. Till then, this is Nelson, and I'll see you there.